We're focused on infrastructure problems with Beachfront, right? So we're really focused at driving that interoperability between the exciting world of streaming and connected television and this legacy kind of linear TV infrastructure. And in our opinion, having been in this now for 3 years and in the kind of bowels of ad tech on both sides, it really is an infrastructure problem. It's just driving interoperability is around systems integration. And I think that largely is what's holding back more and more automation, across this concept of convergent television.
Mm-hmm. So you see it more as a operational and tech problem, but I think it's fair to say that networks, programmers, have been reluctant to delve into the programmatic world.
Yeah.
But we're seeing more and more larger broadcasters and networks actually dip their toe in recent sort of times. What do you think is driving this change?
I think that television, particularly connected television, is a more controlled environment. I think this general notion of programmatic being a race to the bottom, right, is a bit of a miscast philosophy for television. I think we have better controls. We've learned a lot on how to drive, better yield. And it's one of the reasons we tend to use the word automation over programmatic, is because it is still a little bit of a boogeyman for some. Mm-hmm. But I think we can all agree that more automation in what has largely been a manual workflow for 70 years benefits both the buy and sell side of advertising, right? We have so many resources tied up into just pure execution that by automating that, it frees up resources to go do other great things on both the buy and the sell side.
You mentioned that the word programmatic is almost a bogeyman for broadcasters, networks, content owners. Do you think that's a reasonable position for broadcasters to take with programmatic?
I don't. But if you have limited understanding on what caused some of the challenges over 15 years in kind of display advertising, then I think it's a perfectly reasonable perspective to have. I think a lot of the technology that's put in place around automation of television, whether it's connected TV or linear, the ecosystem doesn't lend itself to this concept of a race to the bottom, because you have limited supply and an overabundance of demand for that specific supply pool. When you're dealing in display, it's infinite supply, right? And it's very easy to create more. So it opens itself up to driving prices and rates down. In TV, it's a much different dynamic.
TV has a less of a long tail problem, I guess, is
much less
what
of a long tail
you're saying
problem.
there. So what do you see? What changes do you see in this space occurring over the next year? Like we said, there's this bogeyman of programmatic, but then major broadcasters are now dipping their toe in. So what changes are we seeing? What obstacles will overcome, and will budgets move from the sort of the manual transactions to this automation?
Oh, I think there's no question budgets are going to move. I think what determines how fast we can move is how quickly we get the piping, in place. And, as we sit here today, there's a finite number of places where premium content can get distributed from, right? It's to a phone, and I think we've had that figured out for a long time. But in that big screen in the home, it's to the glass, ultimately, and through a box is another way to deliver that content. And there aren't an infinite amount of companies that control that infrastructure. So to get that piping done and to really bring scale in an automated fashion isn't that hard from a technical and infrastructure perspective. It really is just about everybody agreeing on common specs and bringing those common specs to a platform that can execute. The harder part is getting everyone to agree.
Yes, getting everyone to work together and to agree. That is a sort of common theme throughout.
Yep.
And then finally, you obviously operate both within the CTV online world and linear. Are there things that both sides could sort of learn from each other to make sort of TV advertising more efficient and profitable for everyone in the value chain?
For sure. I mean, listen, there's a lot of money that's stood up to create great content and distribute that out to consumers. And I don't think we've put enough of the power in the hand of those programmers and those content owners. And I think by bringing more technology with greater capabilities to programmers and distributors, we're kind of empowering them to extract more value from the great content that keeps us all entertained all the time. So I do think, as it relates to what each can learn, I think that the traditional side can learn a lot from what's happened in digital as it relates to automation, right? And I think what the digital side, the streaming side, can learn is, how do you drive the right consumer experience? We're still making mistakes in connected television, and it's still young. But a lot of what you'll see and hear is that the user experience still isn't optimal. We're still trying to deliver these old ads into this new environment. We're seeing woeful execution as it relates to how we manage ad breaks and pods, and we have ads bumping into each other. We have duplicate ads running next to each other. So I think just from a consumer experience standpoint, we've run very hard at standing up this infrastructure for connected television. We haven't spent a lot of time thinking about the consumer experience. And I think that's coming. But I do think that's something that streaming players can really learn from what's been done over the last 70 years in traditional television.